Hello and welcome to I'm Your Biggest Fan, the podcast that chats to your favourite artists about their favourite artists. I'm your host, Jasmine Lammy, in conjunction with the Noizze podcast network and sponsored by Satanic Tico. On today's episode, I'm chatting with British heavy metal outfit The Raven Age and their vocalist MJ. You might recognise the band name as Iron Maiden's Steve Harris's Sons band. That's a mouthful, isn't it? However, The Raven Age are so much more. Since forming in 2009, the band have released 3 studio albums, most recently Blood Omen in 2023, and have toured internationally with Alter Bridge's Mark Tremonti, Iron Maiden, Anthrax, and Killswitch Engage. Despite the modern metal direction and alternative leanings, MJ's roots and influences lie mainly in the classic rock era, namely with Aerosmith and his adoration of frontman Steven Tyler. Today we're going to be talking about Aerosmith, which I'm very excited about because I am also a massive Aerosmith fan.
Oh, brilliant. Good to know.
Do you happen to remember the first time you ever heard Aerosmith?
Yes. So it all started with my dad, actually. He had, and it was very unlike him, he had a good taste in music, but it was more on the kind of slightly more traditional stuff. He was a big fan of like Otis Redding and Lionel Richie, but there was also some Beatles, of a bit of Rolling Stones, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he always used to put these CDs on in the car, and when he used to drop us off at school, it was a kind of a selection of music. And then one day, I noticed that he had this new album. It was the greatest hits of Aerosmith, and I remember "Dude Looks Like a Lady" from Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
That song, I recognise this song. It's really cool. And I was only, a young kid, and it was really just such a cool sounding voice more than anything. And it's one of those things where this is, I was still like a, little kid, voice hadn't broken, singing in choirs and stuff like that. So that was so far removed from anything relating to myself, but it kind of always stuck. And I can't remember how the love affair started from then on. But I remember, I think it was the movie Armageddon. Was it Armageddon? And they did the song "Don't Want to Miss a Thing" for that. And it's just one of the coolest rock ballads I think of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, again, that was this is Aerosmith. He's just something about him as a singer in particular. So I just dove a little deeper and got a lot of their stuff.
Awesome. I remember mine. So when I was growing up, again, my dad, we would have like little YouTube nights and
cool.
we'd put on music videos. So everything that I got into as a kid, I had visuals for as well.
Yeah.
And we also had a greatest hits era. I think it was like The Devil's Got a New Disguise one.
Yeah. And and they've got some live tracks on that, I believe, as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they had music videos on it as well. So it was like a DVD that came with the CD. And it was a music video to Jaded, but specifically the music video for Pink.
Right.
It's just it was so like wacky and weird, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. But that was mine. As
a kid, you looking at that video and you go, "Wow, Steven Tyler, what is he exactly?"
Yeah, is he a reptile? What's going on there?
But it's interesting. I mean, I obviously this was back before the days of YouTube, but back when music TV was still like quite a prominent thing, and they used to feature quite a lot on the MTV Rocks and the channels, the rock channels of the day. So yeah, I remember that, especially after the whole YouTube thing, and I started watching like Scuzz and Kerrang. I also then remember seeing like when they were doing the ballads, and they would have "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing" on there as well. That was so good. So the first 2 songs you vividly remember were "Do Looks Like a Lady" and "Don't Want to Miss a Thing." But I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Have there been any songs since then that have kind of like, are they your favorite songs because they were the first songs, or have you got new favorite songs since then?
Again, it's really difficult. I actually the whole kind of like, you know, when you've got certain artists that were very, very important to you at a certain point in your life, but then maybe you've grown out of them for whatever reason. I think Aerosmith is the only band that's never happened to for me. I've
Oh, awesome.
always just kind of remained, you know, and I go through times where I haven't listened to them for maybe a year, but I always come back to them and revisit their catalogue and stuff. But I think Don't Want to Miss. I think there's such commercial songs. You know, they're quite clearly singles, and they do what they're supposed to do. They're kind of like they're catchy. They get you singing. The vocals are amazing. The production's really good. But I remember there was I think I was on. I had a compilation album. This was back in the days of the Walkman. You know, so I was so I had a. Yeah, it was like I think it was called Oh Yeah. It was like a double disc catalog thing of Aerosmith stuff, and I was listening to. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was could have been Dream On. While I was on holiday with my family in a place called Captiva Island, which is on the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, nice.
It was beautiful, and there was we were out, I remember we were out at night. The stars. It's still this is like one of those like core memories that you'll know, you know, that just stay with you forever. And we all went out onto the beach at night, and the stars were like almost like in your face. There were so many, and they felt so close. And I, you know, had my headphones on with my Walkman, and that song came on, and I just kind of like tripped out almost, like just sat back, had Aerosmith blaring, and looking at this blanket of stars, and it was just it was a real like special moment, and that was probably the peak of my obsession, I think, with Aerosmith. And that's, you know, that album, that compilation album, that greatest hits, whatever it was. I think it was the largest one they've ever released in terms of back catalogue, and there were so many songs on there. Like I think Falling in Love is Hard on the Knees, Dream On, Mama Kin, Crazy, Angel was a big one as well. That was a big one in terms of like rock ballads.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those songs.
So it's amazing that like that core memory that you have of looking up in the stars, how different that memory would have been if any other song played at the time.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Can you imagine if like you're just looking up the stars and it's like Pump playing?
Yeah. But it was that particular song, and you know, for certain occasions, there's only certain songs that kind of, you know, as you said, seem to work in that situation.
You could say the stars literally aligned for that moment.
Yeah. It was. I was obsessed with them at that point as well, and it was just such a special kind of moment.
Yeah. So besides kind of what you were listening to in your dad's car, what other music were you listening to at the time? Like, what about Aerosmith, besides Steven Tyler's iconic voice, stood out about them compared to anything else you were listening to at the time?
I think my taste of music's always kind of geared towards the more classic side of rock. Like some of my friends who I grew up with, we went through, you know, when we hit like teenagehood, they're all. I mean, I still love that as well. You know, we were all listening to like heavier stuff, like like nu metal was really big when I was in my teens. So like Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, Korn, all that kind of stuff, and that was what was really popular. And with my friendship group, you know, we all had the that was a big thing. But I love all that stuff as well. But I think I always I preferred a lot of slightly lighter, more melodic forms of music, and Aerosmith just kind of ticks that box for me. I think it's like the combination, because they're quite unique. I mean, they're obviously like America's equivalent of Led Zeppelin, you know. They're probably arguably their biggest classic rock band. Obviously in the UK we've had Zeppelin and the Beatles and Pink Floyd and all that kind of stuff, but Aerosmith, I'd say, for the States is like, you know, they're Beatles in many ways. You know, they're pretty iconic. And Yeah, I think the combination of his voice, the melodies were so the production, the melodies are so. I think the harmonies as well, like the vocal harmonies, was a big thing. How like most people when they're doing like a harmony, they would go underneath the vocal. He'll go, nah, screw that. I'm going to go even higher.
Yeah.
And his range just used to blow me away. But also like the combination of like they used a lot of trumpets and trombones and stuff in their music, which a lot of bands wouldn't usually do, but it kind of did something. I just think it was just something completely unique about Aerosmith that I don't really think you can replicate.
Yeah, it's funny there that you mentioned kind of like the brass and horn sections, because while I was working in the office today, I've been listening to Aerosmith all day, going from like, I only got halfway through their discography, but I started from the beginning and worked my way up. And I got to 9 Lives. And I think that's when they kind of like, there was like a couple of tracks where like I really picked out like how much brass and horn sections were in it, but it didn't, for lack of a better term, a classic rock band, it didn't take away from that. Like it still felt so uniquely Aerosmith, but it just made it sound so much huger and worked so well.
So I actually know the producer who did that album. That album was recorded by Kevin Shirley, I believe, and that was the one and only album he ever did with Aerosmith, and it was one of those ones. It's kind of like it's never going to be like in the same level as Pump and all those other stuff, but it's such a good album. It's one of my favorite produced albums as well. It's fantastic album.
Actually, that's actually my favorite Aerosmith album, funnily enough.
Oh,
also, the year I was born, so I'll always remember that.
Okay, nice.
So I assume that growing up and getting into singing, that you most likely would have sang along to a lot of Aerosmith over the years. Which track is your go-to karaoke song from them?
Aerosmith. Well, believe it or not, I tend not to try and do an Aerosmith karaoke if I ever do karaoke, because they're more often than not quite difficult to sing. But I used to be, before I joined the Raven Age, I was in between bands. I was in a band previously called Wild Lies, and when that kind of disbanded, I got asked to join a function act to do like functions, weddings, all that kind of stuff, like wedding singer kind of thing. And but it was like a rock vibe. We did mainly rock music, and we did put in a Aerosmith song. I think we did "Crying" by Aerosmith, and it's that high note that you reach the chorus with. So I'd say that's the one I've done. I've sung "Don't Want to Miss a Thing" as well in the past, because that's kind of more or less my range. I think that's probably about it in terms of for Aerosmith songs that I've sung myself.
Nice. Okay, so not publicly, and when you're by yourself in the shower, which ones would you attempt?
What would I sing? I think it's because when you put someone on a pedestal so much, and weirdly, I spent most of my when I was in early bands, I spent so much time trying to sound like him, trying to be like. I mean, it was like a combination. It was a combination of Steve Tyler, like David Coverdale was another one.
Nice.
Like Robert Plant was another one. Those guys with those big high ranges, but like kind of gravelly vocals. That's who I wanted to kind of sound like, and it was more the range thing. It takes time to kind of build that, but I've always kind of, when you put someone on a pedestal, you tend to stay away from emulating them, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I feel the same way about Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm.
Yeah, she's incredible. She's an awesome person as well. Yeah,
I've been lucky enough to meet her twice this year, and I've kept my inner fangirl inside so far.
Oh, wicked. Yeah, we did Rock Am Ring and Rock Am Park with them this summer, actually, and our tour managers toured with them a couple of times. So we every time that we're on the same festival slot, we tend to stick our heads in and say hello. And yeah, they're just lovely, lovely people.
Oh, no. Speaking of touring, I think you might know my housemate, Iman. She used to play bass in Hawks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know, man. Yeah.
Yeah, she's my housemate.
Oh, small world.
I know, right? It's mental. So going back to the topic at hand, do you think you will enforce your love of Aerosmith on your son as he gets older?
Oh. Well, there's loads of things that you kind of. Football's probably the one thing that he doesn't have too much of a choice in, in terms of that. But in music, I think I'm quite philosophical about it. I think I'm into so many different forms of music. You know, rock, pop, country, you name it. I listen to pretty much everything, and I've got my select things that I like. But I think the great thing about music is how varied and eclectic and subjective it is as well. You know,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
people's tastes vary so much. Like, and you change your mind on stuff all the time as well. Like my wife, she's never been into. She likes a bit of everything, but a lot of the stuff she likes is just not my cup of tea at all. But there are certain things that, as we've over the years, I've kind of appreciated, even if I don't particularly like it very much.
Yeah, of
One
course.
of the, I don't know how popular I'll be to say this, but one of the bands that I've kind of changed my tune on is Coldplay. I mean, it was just like I couldn't stand anything. It was all just monotonous, drony, whatever. But after, she's a massive Coldplay fan. And she showed me this video. They had this of one of their gigs, and they all had these like colourful bracelets, and that they got given, and it all lit up at a certain part of the song, and there was all these so much colour in the show itself. It was like so different to anything I've ever seen. And I thought, just for that alone, I kind of appreciate them more as a band. And I think they're unique as well. They're one of those bands that you think, well, who else sounds like Coldplay? So droning on, but I think with him, he's. I'd like to think he'll listen to a bit of everything, and hopefully he'll come to his first Raven Age gig at some point in the near future as well.
Oh, bless. So you personally, you have 3 studio full-length albums, including the Raven Age and with your previous band, Wild Lies.
Yeah.
So for both the Raven Age and Wild Lies, how has Aerosmith and Steven Tyler influenced your vocals? Because I know you said there that you've got him on a pedestal, so you don't want to try and emulate him, but what things have you taken from him in your vocals nowadays?
Well, I think range is probably the most obvious one. When I first joined the Raven Age, we had to change a lot of songs to fit, because they were too low, to fit my kind of higher range. And I've always been, that kind of soprano, tenor, alto, that more or less those 3 kind of things. And I think the other thing that I learned from Steven Tyler, what he does really well, is he's got a massive gob, and he really, really works it, but he uses it to his benefit. So if you notice, he can be very percussive with the way that he sings, especially with bouncy kind of stuff. And I'd say the other is harmonies as well, vocal harmonies. That was another big thing for me. And like, it was interesting. I've said this quite a few times in interviews in the past. I didn't think I was actually a decent fit for the Raven Age because I was so different to the previous guy. And it was only when I think, George and the other guys saw my take on the songs, it kind of opened up. I believe that they thought it opened up just so many more possibilities on what they thought the band could be, rather than maybe what it was at the time. So I think, you've got this kind of heavy music, which is, essentially it's a heavy metal band with a more maybe traditional classic rock singer.
What I was going to say, so you also play a guitar as well, I believe.
Yeah, occasionally. I get out the guitar when they let me.
So, has Aerosmith also musically, not just vocally, but does Joe Perry also play a role in the way you play guitar or you play on guitar?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, his kind of style of playing is very unique, I think, to him. I probably slightly. I mean, I don't think musically I resonate with their styles because it's such a a classic. I think Brad Winfred, the other guitarist, who's the more rhythm based, he's a great player and he's very solid and he's kind of not very he's flares and showing off. Joe's the kind of quintessential rock star and he does his thing, and some people love that, some people don't. And I think it works great for Aerosmith, but I think probably musically, not so much when it comes to the guitar styles. I think I've gotten influences from other people, probably more for guitar than I have from Aerosmith.
Awesome. So when I was listening to a lot of Aerosmith today, I love that the very opening lyric of the very first song on their very first full-length album is "Good evening, people. Welcome to the show."
Yeah,
And that's a phenomenal setup for the entire legacy that they've had since then and everything that's followed. If you had to choose a single Steven Tyler lyric to get tattooed or to get framed, what would you choose?
so one of my favourite lyrics, I think, is on "Living on the Edge." It's on the breakdown where he goes, "Chicken Little tells you that the sky is falling, but even if it wasn't, would you still come crawling?" I just think, wow, what a great. And I think it was another one. Oh God,
Putting you on the spot now.
It's one of the old. It's one of the older ones. Oh no, it's gone. But yeah, I think that lyric is always really spoke to me, and I think the lyrics in Pink are just hilarious.
They are, right?
He clearly came up with a concept, and then gone, wow, I've got to come up with quite a lot of words around this concept. And one of the ones, Pink, it's like red, but not
quite. Yes. So I actually,
that's so good.
I dyed my hair pink a year and a half ago now. And when you come up with like captions for your social media posts, or I used that quote when I dyed my hair pink, brilliant. Because I've always been bright red. So the pink was like really off brand for me. So I was like, that's the perfect quote for this moment of my life.
Yeah. Smashed it.
So have you happened to see them live in concert before?
I have, and I tell you what, we were talking about core memories earlier. That was one for me. It was a very, very special moment the first time I saw it, because I never thought, given the age that they were, that they hadn't toured the UK in like 15 years or 15, 20 years, and they announced out of nowhere that they were coming over to play Hyde Park. I think this was back in, I'd like to say 2007, 2008, around that time. And I freaked out, and I managed to get tickets for it. I managed to only get 2 tickets for me and my best mate Dylan. He was an Aerosmith fan, but he was more like a fan because I was a fan, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was a great day. They had loads of acts on. I think like Joe Satriani played earlier in the day, and it was pissing it down all day because it was an outdoor thing, and I didn't care. But it was a horrendous day, and I kid you not, as soon as Aerosmith came on stage, the rain stopped and the clouds just kind of parted, and it was such a great moment. And I remember I was with my friend Dylan. We just kind of like looked at each other like, oh, this is special. And I think it was when they did Dream On, and Steve Tyler came out on this big white grand piano, and Joe Perry climbs up halfway through onto the piano to like do his guitar stuff, and then just before Steve Tyler does the high pitch Dream On thing, he also climbs up on the piano next to Joe Perry, and it was just, they were like back to back during that moment. And you know, when all the hairs grow up on you and the goosebumps on your arms, and it was like, oh wow, it was just a real like emotional moment. I can't believe I'm finally seeing them live. And then I got to see them again not that long after, I think a couple of years later, when they played Download. They played, what a lineup. I think AC/DC played one of the days and Aerosmith played one of the days. So it was, yeah, that was also amazing.
Oh, I'm so jealous. So I've had tickets to see Aerosmith 3 times, and each time it's not happened.
Oh, no.
So I've still not seen them, and them and AC/DC are the only other two, I guess I would say, like, legendary bands I've got left on my bucket list.
Oh yeah, you gotta try.
Yeah, like this year I finally saw Motley Crue and Def Leppard, but Aerosmith's like one that I can't seem to get a hold of. I had tickets for their 2020 tour.
Yeah.
And obviously that got postponed and then postponed again and then cancelled. So I'm still like, I need to see them, because I also feel like, I guess it was like the same for Motley Crue. Like, even though they're getting to that age now, it's still gonna be an absolute show and a performance.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I need. I crave that.
Yeah, we're at Hellfest this summer actually, and Motley Crue and Def Leppard were playing, and I'm a massive. I like Motley Crue a lot, but I'm a massive Def Leppard fan as well.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I almost, when I was asking about this, I almost picked Def Leppard but no, Aerosmith kind of edged it for me. And I've always wanted to meet them, and I was very luckily escorted to meet the band just before they went on stage at Hellfest, and they were just the loveliest, sweetest guys, totally down to earth. Just literally, minutes before they went, and then they went on, and it was an incredible show. So two great bands.
Yeah. So you've met Def Leppard. I'm assuming you've not met Aerosmith.
I haven't, and do you know what? I'm actually kind of glad. They would be one of those where I've had a few situations in my career where I have met some of my heroes, and it's not always turned out in a good way.
Okay.
And I don't think I could take that if that same thing happened with Aerosmith. So I'm actually quite glad.
Yeah. If the opportunity arose, though, would you take
I still
it?
would, absolutely. I would. I mean, I'm not, but I'd be just terrified that I'd build it up in my head and it would disappoint, or I would just, Wayne's World, we're not worthy, like that,
You would literally say the words, "Oh my God, Steven Tyler, I'm your biggest fan."
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah.
So out of all their 15 studio albums, which one is your favorite, if you had to choose?
I think probably Pump is I think just the most iconic for me, but also I'm trying to remember. I actually just forgotten the name. It's the one with the cow on the
Get a Grip.
Get a Grip. I really like Get, because I think the production's amazing, and it's got one of my favorite songs on it as well. It's just some really, really good tracks. And yeah, between those two, there's also an amazing documentary that they did on the making of Pump, because it was the first album Aerosmith ever did sober. So Steve Tyler was sober when he did that, and I think the other guys were, and obviously it had Crying. Was it Crying was on that one, wasn't it? And was it Crying? No, it was Love in an Elevator, all those kind of tracks. And it was, just a real, just iconic album. And the song with the bagpipes, I keep forgetting.
There's a song with bagpipes?
Yeah. Oh, it's a long day. My memory's yeah, those two albums really good.
And again, obviously 15 albums is a lot. Are there any ones that you found underwhelming or didn't live up to your expectations?
I think their style early on was so very different to the way that because to me the iconic Aerosmith sound happened later. It took him a while. I think it took a while for his voice to kind of develop to that Steve Tyler sound. And I just think, when they started off, they were still learning their trade. And I think, the production wasn't great. I mean, there were still some great songs. I mean, like Dream On was early on. Mama Kin was early on. Seasons of Change or Seasons of Wither or whatever it's called.
Seasons of Wither.
Yeah, I mean, that was an early one. These are... So... those were early songs, but I think I wouldn't call it underwhelming. It's just maybe I just prefer their sound when it's become more polished, I think.
Yeah, of course. I find as well that like if you get into a band and the first stuff you hear from them is like the middle of their career, then I find like trying to listen to anything earlier or listening to anything later, you've already kind of got this preconception in your mind, and it's a little bit, or it might take a little bit longer for you to like adjust to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I get that as well. If you had to direct someone listening to Aerosmith for the first time, what 3 tracks would you suggest that encapsulates them perfectly?
Oh, very good question. That's a very good question.
Because there's so many.
I think an all-out rock song, you can't go wrong with Crying. I mean, I think it's probably one of the most iconic rock songs. You've got to have a ballad in there. I mean, even though they technically didn't write it, Don't Want to Miss a Thing is just such a great song. That and, Dream On, it's just one of the best rock ballads. It's like almost like one of the starting points of the rock ballad, I think, when that came out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a beautiful song. So yeah, I think probably those 3.
Yeah, I remember like the first, I guess, album I heard Aerosmith on was the compilation Devil's Got a New Disguise. So, and Dream On was on that, and obviously like all their greatest hits were on that. So when I went back and started listening to their earlier stuff, I was like quite surprised to find that Dream On happened so early in their career and in their sound, because I guess they like built on that, and that is what ended up becoming like their quintessential sound.
Yeah, it's also interesting because his voice, it doesn't sound anything really like him. It sounds, because he's obviously very young when he's done that, but he also has, I think in interviews has said it's the first song he ever did with his kind of natural voice, without him trying to put any rasp on it. And yeah, it's just really interesting, I think.
Yeah, but let's talk about the genre crossover of Walk This Way with Run DMC.
Ooh, yeah.
Because that is a tune.
Yeah. I mean, both versions of it are fantastic, I think.
Yeah, so the first version I heard was the Run DMC version, and for like years I didn't realize there was an original version. So which of those 2 do you prefer?
I think I do prefer the Run DMC one, just because it just hits so much harder. And do you know what? That's one of the great things about Aerosmith. They are a band that have constantly reinvented themselves, and that's why they've always sounded like Aerosmith, but they've always tried to push the boundaries and push push pop culture for them to be current, and they did that with, when they came back with Pump, songs like Janie's Got a Gun. But Run DMC, that's the first that was a brave thing, because rap was like so far removed from rock music, and it was quite a new thing. Rap was like, that's early rap, Run DMC. So I think it was a big, brave move, and a lot of people in the rock industry hated it because it was, but it was, you can't deny it was, it made sense, and I think hats off, because it was a brave thing to do, that kind of crossover thing. But yeah, it works brilliantly.
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot more like grit as well to it than than the first version.
Yeah, it's the drums hit harder because it's like that loop, but also the guitar riff is slightly different. How Joe Perry plays it, and it just sounds great.
Are you a big fan of merchandise?
What, Aerosmith merchandise or just merchandise in general?
In general, but then we're going to talk about Aerosmith merchandise.
I think once upon a time, yes. I think when you do being in a band is your job essentially, and your main thing. Your merchandise becomes something that is very much something you do rather than something you have yourself. Okay. My take on merchandise is more of a sentimental thing. For example, when we're touring with bands, places we go, festivals we go, I always like to take a memento, whether that be a pass or a T-shirt with the band name on the back, or a towel, anything. I've got just a whole wardrobe full of stuff that I never actually wear, but it's just more of like a memento kind of thing. That's more important, I think, for me in this stage of my life. Yeah, so you don't have a memory box, you have a memory wardrobe. Memory wardrobe, yeah. Memory boxes and wardrobes, I think. Just so many boxes of passes you wouldn't believe. But when you were younger and like just getting into Aerosmith and at the height of, as you said, your obsession with them, did you ever have any Aerosmith merch back then? I did. I had. What did I have? I had one of those like baseball tees, but it was like a vintage-looking baseball tee, and I had. Do you remember? I don't know if you do, but there was for a while. I think it was in Top Man. They went through a stage of these rock T-shirts. Do you remember that? And because I think the female equivalent Topshop also did the same. Yeah. And I bought an Aerosmith one of those. I think early on, like I said, the guys that we were hanging out with, we used to wear band merch all the time, but it was usually in the kind of the new metal scene. We were wearing like Slipknot hoodies and Korn hoodies and stuff like that, and that was like our thing. And because I was the only one that was kind of into the more like lighter stuff, it was But I did have a couple of Aerosmith T-shirts back in the day. Nice. Have you ever been on the Aerosmith branded rock and roller coaster in Disneyland? It's possibly one of my favorite rides in the world. Yeah, absolutely love it. I remember when I was like 14 and I went on it 7 times in one day. Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's so great. I think first time I went on it hadn't even been open that long, and it was back when it was called MGM Studios. Okay, yeah. Before they changed it to Disney Hollywood or whatever it is. And me and my dad got on it, and because they've got the speakers in the thing, and we were kind of like, we heard the rumors that it's like the fastest roller coaster 0 to 60 or whatever, because they're using NASA technology or something. So we get in there, and it's that first initial like thrust with the music's blaring, and oh my god, yeah, just amazing. I feel like the music really made it. It's like having because like, why don't roller coasters have soundtracks like that? Like, it made it so much cooler and so much more energizing and like adrenaline pumping. Yeah, amazing ride. Love it. I got going back to merch, I got one of their like rock and roller coaster rock and roll. Yeah. That's, I'm getting tongue tied on that now. The little guitar picks that they have in the shop afterwards. Oh, cool. I tell you, actually, just sparked a memory. They one of my favorite little memorabilia things that Aerosmith did. They did an album. It was a cover album called Honkin' on a Bobo, and it was all like blues based stuff, all old stuff that their influences, basically, like their heroes. And I bought a collector's edition of the album, and it came with a little tiny like harmonica. Oh, okay, that's cool. It was like a key ring, and it was about that big, but you could actually play it. It actually worked. as a harmonica, and that was on my keyring for like 10 years, I think.
Did you ever manage to learn anything on it?
I did, to be fair, I did actually, when I was in the height of my Aerosmith obsession, I did learn to play the harmonica. I had about 10 different harmonicas in different keys. So, and I could play Crying, the harmonica solo in Crying, and I could play Pink.
Oh, amazing. Maybe you should crack out at a Raven Age gig at some point.
Oh yeah, that would work.
Do it on April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
So they've not actually released any new music since 2012's Music from Another Dimension. If they released new music today, bear in mind it would have been a decade since that, what would you hope it would sound like?
I remember buying that album. To be fair, I went out and bought a CD. That probably shows how long ago it was. What would I expect, did you say?
What would you hope it would sound like? What would you want it to sound like?
I mean, I still think, they've still got the chops. They can still all play. I've seen, Steve Tyler can still sing. He's got a bit more deepness to his voice now because he's an old guy. They've always been a collaborative band. They've always worked with outside writing sources. So I feel like they've always had some hits in there. Like the ballad they did on the last album. What was the title of it? What could have been love? Is that what it's called? What could have been love on the last album?
Let me see. Oh, I don't have my Spotify open.
I think that's what it was called, and that was obviously just such a great Aerosmith type ballad, and there were some great songs on there. So yeah, I know not a lot of people loved it. They thought it's a pretty good album, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a cool album, and I was more. It's like it's like people that are fans of Star Wars or something. A show or another Star Wars movie is better than no Star Wars movie sometimes, And that was kind of like, I wasn't disappointed by the last album, and I think if they did do an album, it would obviously definitely probably be their last. So yeah, I would absolutely still buy it, and I think there would be, they've got their sense still about it. I think there'd be a couple of decent hits on there.
Yeah, I was talking about it today because when Music from Another Dimension came out in 2012, it had then been another whole decade before that when they released Just Push Play in 2001. And I was quite surprised at how, like, it wasn't as different as I was expecting it to be after a decade. Like, it still had, Aerosmith's quintessential sound, but every single time they've put out some releases, like decade upon decade, it still sounds like Aerosmith, but it encapsulates like the year that it was released in somehow. Like they still always move with the times, production wise, I guess, but their songwriting and their sound is still always them. Which
I think it's that combo of Joe Perry and Steve Tyler. That's always gonna be its own special thing,
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever read Steven Tyler's autobiography?
I actually have not. No, I haven't.
Wait.
No.
Wait, I have it. Wait. I'm actually a music autobiography fiend.
Oh.
I have Joe Perry's. Very good. So I know like Motley Crue released The Dirt, but Aerosmith actually did it first. So they've got like a band autobiography.
Oh, okay.
Written by them, which is really cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, Dirt I have read. Great book.
Yeah, it is. I remember so like I've got so many autobiographies, and I remember I read The Dirt and I was like quite young. I must have been like 14 or 15.
I think I was as well, actually.
And I remember asking my dad for Slash's autobiography for Christmas, And he was like, no, absolutely not. I think you're too young to read that. And I was like, you've just let me read the dirt.
Yeah.
Nothing can be worse than that.
It's notorious autobiography, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is Steven Tyler's one, which is really cool.
Oh, do you know what? I have seen that. Yeah. I've never been, apart from obviously the odd few exceptions, I've never been too much of an autobiography reader. I've always been into like more escapism stuff. I think I'll tell you what it is. With the music industry, it's such... I've been in it now for quite a long time, and when I'm not touring and doing stuff, I tend to almost block out everything music industry related if I can, and then kind of gives me a reset for when I'm back doing it again.
Yeah, I get that. So my full-time job, I'm actually a publicist as well for the Noise Cartel. So I also like my day job is also in the industry, and I have found that if I'm not listening to the albums that I'm currently working, then I'm listening to like my comfort bands and my comfort albums, like the stuff I grew up on. Like I find it so difficult nowadays to sit down and discover new music that I'm not already into.
I'm exactly the same. It's bad. I mean, also because, from a creative standpoint, I tend to like, let the stuff that I'm working on be what I'm listening to as well, if you know what I mean. Because I think it's happened to me so many times in the past where you take influence subconsciously from stuff and you think, oh, bugger, So I tend to, but with my classics, as you say, like the safety bands, you already know it. So it's like, it's easy.
Yeah, exactly. So Aerosmith would be one of your safety bands.
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't had a band that I can add to that category in quite a long time. I think the only one who's made the safety pile has been Ghost, and that's probably about it.
Nice. Yeah, the company I work for, we do radio for Ghost. So I also listen to a lot of Ghost. Cool. I have 2 more questions for you. So, are you also a fan of the game Guitar Hero?
Yeah, and I had the Aerosmith version of Guitar Hero.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because for me as well, that's how I delved into not just like listening to Aerosmith songs or watching their videos, but how I like learn about them as a band and as people and their history and the way they work, because they had all the little like interviews between all the segments of the game. So what was your favorite song to play on Guitar Hero?
I think it was Old Salty, was it?
Oh, Uncle Salty.
Uncle Salty, that's the one. Yeah, that was good fun because it was easier to play. I wasn't very good, but yeah, it was that was a great game. Absolutely loved it. I never had any other version of Guitar Hero. I only ever had the Aerosmith version.
Oh, nice. That was one of the first ones I had, and I'm also really bad at Guitar Hero. So when I would complete a game on easy, instead of redoing it like on medium, I would just buy a new game and do that on easy, and just like so I've got like all the Guitar Heroes, but I still only know how to do easy.
Yeah, sounds like me.
Cool. So I've got one more question for you. This is kind of like a fun little game we're going to play to roll off this interview. I'm going to read off some inspirational quotes to you, and you're going to tell me if you think it's something Steven Tyler said or just something I found on Instagram this morning.
Okay.
Number 1, rise above the storm and you'll find the sunshine. Instagram or Steven Tyler?
Weirdly, I can like imagine him saying it in his like husky voice. I'm going to say Instagram.
Correct. It was. Number 2, when you focus on the good gets better.
That sounds Steven Tyler to me. Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
No, it says Instagram.
Oh, is it? I can imagine him saying that though.
Some days you're the bug, some days you're the windshield.
I know, I 100% know that's Steven Tyler. I can even tell you what that's from. That's from the Pump documentary, isn't it?
Oh, nice, yeah. Number 4. If you have a candle, the light won't glow any dimmer if I light mine off of yours.
Sounds Instagram to me.
No, that was Steven Tyler.
Okay.
Number 5.
Okay.
Are you getting closer to what you want to be tomorrow? Because if you're not, keep doing what you're doing until you do.
Instagram.
Yes, that was correct. Number 6. You'd be surprised how expensive it costs to look this cheap.
That sounds like Steven Tyler to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 7. Songwriting is a bitch, and then it has puppies.
Well, you'd think it would be Steven Tyler if he's talking about songwriting. Is it Steven Tyler?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, fine.
Yes, it is. Okay, number 8. The things that come to those that wait may be the things left by those that got there first.
Instagram.
Steven Tyler. You're like, no, I think you're wrong. Number 9. It's okay to be a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time.
It's okay to be a masterpiece and again, I could imagine him saying that, so I'm going to say Steve Tyler.
Nope, that was off Instagram as well.
I got a few in there.
Right, we've got 5
I got
more.
the windshield one. I knew that was him.
Number 10. Love may be the best driving wheel, but anger is a pretty good second.
Steve Tyler.
Yes, correct. Number 11. Give 100% in everything, except when donating blood, of course.
Steve Tyler.
No, I got that one off Instagram as well, believe
really?
it or not. Okay, I've got 15 of these, by the way, so we're almost there. Number 12. If you don't have a dream, there is no way to make one come true.
Can I imagine saying Steve Tyler?
Yes, correct. Number 13. I know why we're here. We're all here because we're not all there.
That sounds like Steve Tyler.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, 2 more. Number 14. There are 2 things people want more than sex and money, and that's recognition and praise.
That does, again, it sounds like something he would say. So, Steve Tyler.
Nope, that was also Instagram.
Okay.
Final one. You've got to lose to know how to win.
Steve Tyler.
Yes, correct. Thanks for playing my Steven Tyler or Instagram game with me.
It's good. I think I got a few right.
You did, yeah. I'll add up the scores afterwards and let you know. Thank you for listening to I'm Your Biggest Fan. If you enjoyed what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to your nan in the post. Every little helps. You can follow us everywhere at biggestfan_pod. Follow me everywhere at Wrathchild_jazz. Noizze at Noizze UK on everything. Noizze Podcast Network at Noizze Podcast Network on everything. And Satanic Tico at Satanic Tico and at Pitch Black Nor. If you have a band member in mind that you think would be perfect for this podcast, perfect for this topic of conversation, or maybe you are the band member and you're the super fan, drop us a comment, drop us an email. All other info can be found below in the description. And thanks again for listening. We'll catch you soon.